Greetings and konnichiwa, patrons of the tavern. This is Rick the Barkeep, bringing you my post Power Rangers movie viewing vlog, or whatever it is I'm going to go ahead and call this thing. The point is, I've seen the Power Rangers movie, and now I'm going to go ahead and talk about it with you guys. Real quick, before we actually get started with this, I want to apologize for a couple of things. One, my original intention was to do this vlog a couple of hours after I went ahead and viewed the movie. Unfortunately, I was able to go ahead and do that because life. So I apologize for that. But even though it's a couple of days after the movie premiered, I'm hoping by this point you've all seen the movie. So you guys will have actually understand what I'm talking about. And if you haven't seen the movie, why are you even listening to this? The thing's gonna be full of spoilers, guys. So again, spoiler warning right there. And second, I apologize you guys don't see me because again, in the format where I don't do an actual tavern episode, I'd like you guys to go ahead and see me. But again, life doesn't allow that to go ahead and happen, so you just gotta deal with this still image of me from the movie theater with my wife. Okay, so those things out of the way, and again, I'm going to say this one more time. Spoilers, we're going to talk about everything in the movie. Nothing's going to be held back, so if you haven't seen it, go see it, then come back and listen to this. Again, why would you be listening to this if you didn't plan to go see the movie? Okay, so let's get the first thing out of the way. Yes, I love the movie. It is the best of the three Power Ranger movies, and no, Clash of Red Rangers is not a Power Ranger movie. I loved it. I thought it was great. I want to see it a second time. I'm going to see it a third time, and I'm going to buy it on special edition Blu-ray and pre-order it as soon as it comes available on Amazon. That's just how much I really like this movie. Because, to be quite honest, first of all, the movie does have its flaws. It does have issues that I want to go ahead and address. But really, this is the type of Power Ranger movie that I've been wanting for years. Because here's the thing, guys, this movie operates a little bit differently than the first two films, as it should. I mean, here's the thing: going into the first movie, you knew who the Power Rangers were, you knew the story, and if the opening crawl didn't make that apparent, it was really meant for the fans who were following the television show at the time. It was not a film that was meant to introduce the audience to the Power Rangers world, to the Power Rangers mythos. It is, a continuation for those who are already familiar with it. Same thing with Turbo. I really don't think anybody should have seen Turbo expecting it to be an introduction into the Power Rangers. Introduction to Turbo, yes, but you go into the movie already knowing who the characters are, what the setup is, the Zeo, Crystal, and Tom, Jason, and Kimberly, and so forth. You already knew that going in. The benefit of this movie, of course, is that it really wipes the slate clean. That it is for somebody who has never heard of Power Rangers, someone who has not watched Power Rangers since they were a kid, and of course the casual fan and the hardcore fan such as myself. I really think this movie. Everybody keeps debating on who the target audience was and all that. I do think the target audience was people my age who both love Power Rangers and are not aware of Power Rangers. No, this movie wasn't meant for little kids. It's very obvious by its PG-13 rating and the content that is in the film. It is definitely a more adult-oriented movie, or at least people in their 20s and so forth. This is something that I think you have to be a little bit mature going into to understand. There is some immaturity in the movie, to be sure, but the movie does cover a lot of things that there are mature subjects, that are things that you would not expect to see in a Power Ranger movie or even a Power Rangers episode. I mean, guys, we have drinking of beer in this movie. We have Rangers getting arrested. We have actual guns being used. We have possible drug references and sex references and of course people actually getting killed in this movie. I mean, can you guys actually believe that there are actually civilian casualties in this film, and of course Ranger casualties, and we'll talk about that here in a moment as well. But overall, I love the movie. I think it was great. I want to go ahead and see it again. And I will say this: people say that the runtime is too long. And that, here's the thing, guys. One of the criticisms I heard before the movie was coming out, And of course, a couple of the reviews that have come out, Movie Bob, Jeremy Jans, and a few others that I do follow, is that they do believe that the best part of the movie is the ending of the movie, where we have the traditional morphing, fighting the putties, giant monster, Zord battle, Megazord battle, save the day. People love that part of the movie because that is, in essence, Power Rangers. What they don't like is the 2 hour build up to that. They believe that this is essentially, again, I've had this comparison as well. It's Breakfast Club meets Power Rangers, and they feel that the movie is too long in building up to the finale, as opposed to just getting there. And I definitely disagree with that, because if anything, I wish the build-up was longer. I wish we actually had a longer movie. Heck, a 3 hour film I think would have been just fine given everything that we've gotten here. Because those 2 hours that we build up to the point where the Rangers morph as a group for the first time, fight the putties, and get into the Zords and so forth, I think that was earned. I really do. I think we actually earned it in the film. You earned it in the first Power Ranger movie because they had to go on the quest to Phaedos, find the great power, and so forth. They didn't earn it in the Turbo movie because they were just kind of given to them, the Zords and everything. But what I'm really talking about is really just kind of the build up, because we go the 2 hours getting to know the characters before they get into the suits. Because so much it's all about let's morph, let's get it done, let's not even bother with character development. But this film really does get into the character development. They really get into who these Rangers are and what makes them tick, and I really appreciate that. And I think it works pretty well for most of the Rangers. And again, we'll go ahead and talk about that. But man, I could have seen this movie be a little bit longer, and I think it would have worked for the better. Because it does seem that there are some scenes that possibly ended up on the cutting room floor that maybe DVD extras, or I do hope there is a director's cut, that there is an extended edition of this film, because there are some things that I think need a little bit more time to flesh out. That some of the things did seem a little rushed. Again, I know that's odd for this film that's over 2 hours long, but it did seem like a lot of elements were rushed, and we just kind of like have to accept them. One of the things I do think was rushed in the film was the introduction to the command center, the power chamber, or command center, power chamber, whatever you want to go ahead and call it in this film. But they go to a spaceship and they wander around for not very long. Get introduced to Alpha, are told they're the Power Rangers. Zordon shows up, tell them what they need to do, give the plot of Rita, and it's all very, very quick and accepting. The montage I get, I think that was well paced and all that. But they need to extend that scene out. I think we need to extend some scenes for other characters. We need some more background on them. Like even with Jason and his father, and we'll talk about that when we talk about Jason. But I think we needed more relationship with his father. I wanted to see more of him interacting with his father, possibly in a point where he's not angry at Jason. I wanted to see Trini interact more with her family than in the one scene we got in the middle of the movie, and the scene we got at the end of the movie with her two little brothers. I think we needed more stuff with these characters to understand them. We understand them fairly well in the film, but more is certainly better. I think the Zord battle at the end was well paced. I don't think we needed any more of that in the film. But again, a longer film would have been great. A little bit more explanation on some things. I'll tell you the one thing that really needed expansion in the film was the prologue, because I have three scenes of the movie that I love the best, and I want to go ahead and talk about those right now. My three favorite scenes. The first scene was the prologue, where we find out about the battle on Earth 65 million years ago. The other Rangers die. Rita versus Zordon. Zordon's the original Red Ranger. Rita was the Green Ranger, which is nothing particularly new. That apparently that was like leaked months and months and months, maybe about a year ago at this point, that's how the film was going to go ahead and start. We get to see it. And frankly, I was hoping for an actual battle, a Zord fight, something a little bit more, because we come in at the tail end of that battle and we just find out that everybody's dead except Zordon. Zordon puts the coins away, he calls up to Alpha and all that stuff, and then we see Rhea defeated. That scene was pretty short. I know that's probably how it was intended to be, but damn, I would have loved to have seen the whole thing, the final standoff, and I would love to see an extended cut of that where we see the whole battle, we see what happens, and that's the end. That certainly could have been done. And I something else too about that scene is this is something we really don't have in Power Rangers, which is kind of odd for a science fiction franchise. Is that there is an alien language that's being spoken, which I'm going to assume is Eltarian because Zordon is Eltarian. We don't know that yet, but man, I hope they come up like an Altarian dictionary. I hope this is an actual language that they developed in the same way that Tolkien came up with Elvish or Star Trek came up with Klingon. I would definitely like to go ahead and see them expand this into a full language for future films, or heck, this is something you could definitely introduce into the television show, but an actual language that's developed for the series. That's something I really love. I think my second favorite scene. This is no particular order. This is chronological order actually. But my second favorite scene in the film was the campfire scene, where they basically failed as rangers. In their minds, they go camp out for the night with Zach, and they talk about their secrets. It's kind of like the Power Ranger AA meeting. I really like that because we really get to the core of what some of these rangers' problems are. This, of course, is the scene where we find out that Trini is gay, and they kind of overblown the whole gay thing. It's really a small thing in the film. It's only mentioned once. It's not even explored. Trini has no girlfriend. We don't see her kissing girls. We don't see her really explore her sexuality. We don't see her talk to her parents about it. It's not something that's really delved into. It's just implied, and Trini basically agrees with it. And oh, she's gay. We learn that about her, but we don't explore it. And again, we'll talk more about that when I want to talk about Trini. But we definitely get into Zach's character here. I love his backstory. I think it's great. Billy, we get to a little bit more into him. Kimberly, we save that for a later scene in the movie, and it works better later than just there. But I really like that. I like the atmosphere of it. I just think it was kind of a great scene. Plus, again, it's a little surreal watching a Power Ranger drink beer in that scene, particularly an underage Ranger. Which I do want to bring this point up as well. Let's stop right here real quick, and I do want to talk about my assumptions I made about Jason Trini from the trailers. Now, the first assumption I made is that Jason was getting himself a DUI, wrapped his car around a tree, and that's why he had the ankle bracelet and all that kind of stuff. That was what I understood from the trailer and from other information, because it seemed in the character sides in the information about him leading up to the movie that was going to be the case. No, in this particular case, it was because he had done a senior prank or something and got into a car accident evading the police. Now, that to me is a little bit more forgivable than a DUI. The scene itself is kind of stupid because we go from the tragedy of Zordon losing all his friends and everything and Rhea being defeated to Jason and Hawkeye, I think is his name, stealing a cow, and then his friend making jokes about masturbating a cow. Yeah, that's odd juxtaposition right there and all that. But nevertheless, I find that a little bit more forgivable because it is a stupid teenage prank. It's something they would go ahead and do. They'd steal a cow. The cops are coming. They have to go ahead and run, and he crashes his car running from the police. Would I like to see my Power Rangers run from the police? Absolutely not. Again, if they were, the Power Rangers that I expect in this movie, and again, I'll touch upon that here soon. But it's not a DUI, so I think his crime is a little bit more forgivable in trying to steal the mascot of another high school because it's a prank and he doesn't realize the consequences of his actions. Or again, maybe he does, trying to make a statement to his father, because that's what Jason has in the movie, is father issues. And of course, the thing about Trini peeing the cup and all that, it still, to me, sounds like she had been on drugs at some previous part. Like her, or at least the way the scene plays out is her mother suspects that she has done drugs before, but there's no hard evidence. Then again, she's an underage drinker, and I don't particularly like that, really. Again, with these characters, but again, I'll talk about the characters. Again, I just want to clear up that I made those assumptions based on what we saw in the trailer. The movie doesn't paint it exactly that way. So again, the crimes are a little bit more forgivable. And it's not that I don't believe in forgiveness, as some of you guys say, forgiveness or redemption. I totally believe in that. But again, it's really hard to find forgiveness in my mind for like DUIs and illegal drug use in teenagers when it's, absolutely it's wrong. There should be, you know, again, that's a different thing I want to go ahead and get into. Again, I believe in redemption. I just don't think that it was right in this particular situation to have him there. And again, my assumptions there were wrong. So really, everything I said means nothing because it came about nothing. But of course, moving on. Let's see, where was I? Okay, third favorite scene in the movie. And again, this is the big spoiler thing. Again, if you haven't turned away by now, what does it matter? So when Billy dies and they take his dead body back to the command center, I was really shocked when the train hit the bus or hit the minivan, and you think everybody's dead and everything. Is like, wow, that happened like the first 20 minutes of the film. But they weren't playing about Billy being dead at that particular point. Now, of course, there was a cop out with the morphine grid, which I don't fully understand because they really seem to mix up the Power Rangers lore in this. But again, that's something we'll go ahead and talk about. I just think it was very powerful that, Billy tells the location of the Zeo crystal. Um, it essentially sacrifices himself because he doesn't want to see Zach or all of his friends die. And of course, Rita, to prove a point, kills him. I mean, she successfully does kill him. It's only by, I guess, sheer contrivance that he's able to come back to life. It does seem a bit contrived. It doesn't seem like we naturally built up to that. There is a line about the morphine grid being life, the Zeo crystal being shards of life, or life is light. I'm honestly really confused because that conversation was very quick, and that to me is also something that I believe ended up on the cutting room floor. That there was a greater discussion about the morphing grid, about the essence of life, and everything, and that's something that I think really needed to be explored a little bit more. But again, we'll probably get a discussion on that. Regardless, the most powerful scene in this game where they're carrying his body. It's not so much a Christ-like pose or anything, but I think he does have his arms out. The music choice was decent for that particular scene. And I think it worked well. And of course, just the look of failure on their faces. The first time that the Rangers in the series ever had a real look of failures, where the Green Ranger come off for Zordon, and everybody was kind of like giving up except Jason had to bring him out. And that mirrors that scene from Green with Evil, where Jason has to bring them out of their rut. He's like, I'm the leader. I failed. But Jason does try to bring him out earlier in the film. I'm getting that mixed up right now. It's Zordon that kind of brings him out. And again, we'll talk about the different actors and how they worked into there. I'm trying to go into, a straight line here, guys. But you go all over the place with the film. But you guys understand what I'm trying to go ahead and do here. So again, my three favorite scenes. Let's talk about the music since I brought it up there. So the soundtrack in terms of instrumental and orchestral music, I think was fine. I don't see a particular issue with that. Some of the music choices, I did not particularly enjoy. Again, that Kanye West song, and yes, I know it's Kanye West now. That did not work at all. Again, rap music has no place in Power Rangers. That's evident from both Operation Overdrive and Mystic Force. Rap it just doesn't work, and it didn't fit a good tone. Plus, if I may interject for just a quick second, according to the credits of the Power Rangers movie, that Kanye West song had at least 8 people write it. I don't think a song by committee like that is ever good, so that's probably a good indication right there. When 8 or more people are writing a song, it's probably not going to be any good. However, I do give credit to them for using a George Strait song in a Power Ranger movie. Guys, my iPod is full of country music from the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. That's what I grew up on. I grew up on Garth Brooks and George Strait and all that. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that I lived in Kentucky, but there it is. But the fact that they put Billy, a black character who typically, again, when you think about it, they are not prone to listening to country music unless it's like Charlie Pride, I guess. But I've never met a black person that likes country music. So for it to be Billy, that's unusual to say the least. I know that makes me sound incredibly racist, but again, I've never known anybody other than white people to really like that music. So I apologize for how it sounds right there, but I will say I love it when they go into his place and you hear the music. All my exes live in Texas. That was great. I loved it. And then he goes and admits it like it's big, some big secret at the campfire scene. I laughed about it. I thought it was great. But why is that such a big secret? I mean, again, it kind of confused me, but I loved having that in there. Um, this movie needed more rock music. It needed a better. It needed to use Go Go Power Rangers more because they used it once, and that was when the Zords are charging towards Angel Grove. The only thing that messed up that scene was that Billy Zord was going backwards, and I didn't like that. I wish it was played straight, and I wish that song was extended. And I can't tell if that is. It's obviously not the original, but it almost sounds like it was the Ron Wasserman Redux edition that he released a couple of years ago. I don't think it's originally made for this movie. The credits don't indicate that I've been able to find. But if I listen to it again, I might be able to tell you guys the difference. In any case, that part was great. It needed more of that. As Lankara put it, the Wasserman effect, we needed the Wasserman effect in this film. I still think the suits are horrible. I mean, you're not going to change me about that. They look slightly better on a big screen because you get to see a little bit more of them, maybe in detail. But other than that, they're still a total mess. They look ugly. They look nothing like their original counterparts. And here's something I do want to go ahead and say that I realized from watching the film. Um, so, of course, in the original continuity, as Ninjor tells them in the third season, your original powers were based on the brute strength of the dinosaur. So, clearly state the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers were based on dinosaur powers. That wasn't just some design aesthetic that they went with, that was their powers. They came from the dinosaurs. In this movie, the indication is that the Zords are only based off the dinosaurs, that they take the forms of the most powerful animals on the planet, although the animals they take form of didn't coexist at the same time, and they've been asleep for 65 million years, which makes you wonder how they got the woolly mammoth or the mastodon and the saber-toothed tiger, but that's neither here nor there. That's, again, maybe something that was in the cutting room floor, something they didn't bother to explain. Only the Zords are based on the dinosaurs, so no matter what anybody tells me, the suits do not have a dinosaur motif whatsoever. There are no scales, there are no fur in these costumes, they're just generic Ranger suits. Something akin to, say, Operation Overdrive or SPD, where there is no theme going on with type of animals. It is just some sort of straight technological design. Again, Mega Ranger, Power Rangers in space. It's the same thing, just technological design in there, which I think is a shame because, as we've talked about before, Power Ranger teams have different motifs to them. Whether they're mystic arts, animal based, Earth technology, future technology, or over Earth technology, as they call it. This is obviously over Earth technology, or over technology, excuse me. Um, and the thing is that I don't like that, in that what we have is, this is supposed to be based on the Mighty Morphin. Dinosaurs were a big part of that, and now we kind of stripped everything away except for the Zord part of it. What was the point of the power coins having the dinosaurs on them if you weren't going to utilize them for the power set at all? What would the point of making them even based on dinosaurs if, again, their power is not derived from that? Let's also point out that the Morpher is not seen as completely useless in this movie, because Billy's able to morph without a Morpher, and then they have to stand on the pedestals to morph. So morphers are not a thing in this movie whatsoever. Neither are blade blasters. Jason's the only one who gets a weapon, a sword that comes out of nowhere, and then he returns to Zordon at the end of the movie, which again is something else that I believe was cut from the film that obviously had a little bit more significance than what we got in the final product. Nevertheless, anything remotely Mighty Morphin in this movie is missing, and I want to go into that real quick. Another part of kind of like the nitpick criticisms I have of the film, because here's the thing, guys. If you really took away the names of everybody, other than Zordon Alpha and Rita, this really could be any generic team of Power Rangers. Now, in a lot of ways, that's good and bad for the movie. Here's the good part. I wanted a Power Ranger movie or Power Ranger series where you have 5 people who don't belong together that are suddenly forced together to become Rangers. That was the premise of Jetman, is that you had 5 Rangers who really shouldn't be together, only one was really supposed to be there, and then you have a criminal, a dowardice, a high school kid, and a farmer, all come together and they have to learn to be Power Rangers, get past their emotional problems, and learn to work as a team. That works fine. And I would believe that if you made this based on any other Power Rangers series or make it an original Power Rangers, that would be perfectly fine. The movie would actually be there for it. But the problem is that they named them after the original Rangers, but other than the name and the fact that they're Power Rangers, this has absolutely no resemblance to the original team whatsoever. I mean, let's break down. Let's take a look at Zach real quick. Let's kind of look at him in that context, kind of compare and contrast the Walter Jones to this particular character. Now, obviously, there's a racial issue to it, but I'm not going to bring that up because I do feel that's irrelevant, at least for this discussion here. The original Zach, happy-go-lucky. He likes to be a dancer. He's the fun guy. He likes chasing girls and all that. Best friends with Jason. Kind of a happy guy and all that. And has a very bright, happy personality. The Zach in this movie is obviously the son of a Chinese immigrant, an American man, and I'm making that assumption based on the fact that his father's nowhere to be seen, and his name is Zach Taylor, and not some Chinese name, because I do believe his mother's speaking Chinese. My wife says it's Vietnamese, but it sounds Chinese. I don't know. Somebody can go ahead and clarify and correct that for me. Anyway, he's the son of at least of a Chinese immigrant, an American father, who's all alone, and now he's got to take care of his mother. And one of the things that he reveals at the campfire is he's afraid of the inevitable when his mother leaves, and he doesn't know what to go ahead and do. Now, that is completely different from the Zach that we know in the original series. Okay. And my question is if you were radically going to change the character right down to his race and his backstory, then why even name him Zach in the first place? Because if you were attempting to get the original Power Ranger fans into this movie, you didn't need to have the original Rangers to go ahead and do that. You just had to make a Power Rangers movie, and we would have come in droves, which we did. If you were trying to get the original fans from 1993 up until the first movie who left when Zeo, Turbo, or even Power Rangers in Space came around, then you need to make it more like those characters so they can say, oh, I do remember when he did this. I do remember that particular character. Because, again, other than name, none of these Rangers have any resemblance to the original 5 that we had. And I'm just really kind of confused by that. I know people are going to say it's a reboot, it's a reimagining. Granted, that's fine. But here's the thing. When I went to see the Star Trek reboot films, when I saw the performance that Carl Urban was giving as Dr. McCoy, I could hear DeForest Kelley in my head. I could imagine DeForest Kelley saying those lines the exact same way. He was channeling DeForest Kelley, Carl Urban was, in his performance as Dr. McCoy. When I saw Chris Pine, even though he's kind of the weakest of the actors, he was still channeling William Shatner in all 3 of those films. I could look at Chris Pine and be like, yes, I could see William Shatner doing that in his late 20s, early 30s. I could see that particular character in there. Zachary Quinto and Spock. I could see all these voices in my head, and that's what I imagine. And guys, even when I'm reading the Power Ranger comics, I imagine Austin St. John and Amy Jo doing the voices of the characters. I can hear them in the characters, and it makes it right. It makes it perfect. It gives a good link and connection. But I don't hear Thuy Trang in Becky G's performance. I don't hear Austin St. John's voice in Darcy Montgomery, or whatever his name is, his performance at all. They're not channeling the original actors. I cannot, again, with the Star Trek films, I can sit there and imagine that's a young William Shatner sitting in the chair. I can imagine that's a young Nichelle Nichols in a way, but working at the com. I can imagine those actors still being there. I do not see Thuy Trang sitting there around the campfire, drinking beer, talking about her perfect family and how it's hurting her emotionally. I'm not seeing a connection between those characters at all. And again, reimagining, reboot, or not, if you're going to name her Trini, there's got to be some sort of connection there. There's got to be some reason that you want to name her Trini. Because again, why didn't they just take 5 new characters and make up a new scenario? Again, Liz Banks as Rhea Repulsa was not going to bring people into the theater. Elizabeth Banks as a villain, that's good enough. Bryan Cranston's Zordon, okay, that generated some media hype and publicity, but you could have made Zordon, or you could have made Bryan Cranston a different leader altogether. You could have made a human leader, made him an alien leader, made him a robot. You could have made him a mutant. You could have made him anything you wanted, and we still would have seen the movie because it's Bryan Cranston, and the movie is still called Power Rangers. I don't think this is a result of them having a different movie script and then going in and changing it to Power Rangers. Because, a lot of the Die Hard movies, I kind of have that feeling about. Like, It's a Good Day to Die Hard. Like, I don't think it started as a Die Hard script. It just started as a regular action blockbuster script. And, like, we need to get more people into this movie. So if we call it Die Hard and get Bruce Willis, then people would actually go see it. And I don't think that was the case. I think this was always meant to be a Power Ranger movie. Um, but it does seem like they were going to make an original cast and decide, no, we're going to put different actors, or we're going to put the original characters in there, but not have any relevance to them at all. That's just kind of what it seems like to me. I could be completely wrong on that, but there is just a subtle wrongness with all the performances. Not to say that they're bad performances, but even if David Yost played Billy as autistic back in the '93 series, I don't see David Yost's voice in C.J. Ryler's voice as Billy in this film. They're just fundamentally different characters. Because again, watch this film again and think of Thuy Trang if she was still alive, if she was acting in the movie. Think of a young David Yost in this role. Think of Austin St. John in this role. And actually, of the five Rangers, I would say that probably Jason is the closest to his original series counterpart. Just because, again, he is the voice of reason, he is the leader of the team, and we see his leadership in the film. It's not the same level as Austin St. John, but still, he comes the closest to being a representation of the original characters. Um, but again, that's one of the things that just kind of bothers me. Again, if it was just called Power Rangers and you made a new team of Rangers, then I don't think we've had all these problems. Maybe they wanted to do it for the publicity and all that, but again, a Power Rangers movie is a Power Ranger, but you could have made this based on Mystic Force and we would have gone to see it. You could have had this based on Operation Overdrive and people would have still seen it. We would see it's a Power Ranger movie, guys. We don't need to have, Jason, Zach, Billy, Kimberly, and Trini to go see it. We're just going to go see it because it's Power Rangers. Again, the only other reason I can think is they want to bring in the fans that were into the series but got out. But you get people like, my wife who had never seen Power Rangers in her life. She actually enjoyed the film because it was a good film, not because it linked back to the Mighty Morphin era. And I would imagine for people who've never seen it, there were some confusing things that a lot of people just didn't particularly understand. Something else I did have a problem with is so Rita is by herself. She has no minions. She has nobody to talk to or anything, and that is something of a problem in the film. We do. Goldar doesn't talk. That's still a problem in the film. I always knew that was going to be an issue. There is no Bulk and Skull in the film. That itself is a problem. And what's weird too, and this is one of those like tiny little things that I just don't really understand here, is that they mention the principal by name in the movie at least two or three times, and we actually see him towards the end of the film, but it's not Principal Kaplan. Again, if this is based off the Mighty Morphin, why is it the only thing we get are the five Rangers, Rita, Goldar, Zordon, and Alpha? Why is it that nothing else is the same? We have a bully in the film. Why didn't you make it Bulk or Skull or both? We have a principal of the high school, but you didn't make him Principal Kaplan. I don't think we had the teacher writing detention. It's a male teacher, but couldn't you make it Mr. Appleby? Or was it too hard to get a fat woman in there to be Mrs. Appleby or something to run detention? It just seems to me that those are the opportunities for fan service, and you didn't take them. And speaking of fan service, here's the thing, guys. Throughout the film, I was looking for that stuff. I was looking at buildings and street names and name badges and all kinds of stuff to see if I can find references to the Mighty Morphin or any other series. Now, somebody had told me going in there are tons of Easter eggs in there, but I'm probably going to need a second viewing because I barely saw any. When you go to Billy's house, there are figures of Squat, Babu, and Finster hanging in his basement. They're really hard to see, but they're there if you're actually looking. So there's that. There is a reference to Mariner Bay and Reefside. When Jason's dad's driving, he name drops those. And of course, there's the cameos of Amy Jo Johnson, Jason Frank, which I think was handled well. I mean, it was a good place in the movie. It wasn't distracting at all, and it was at the right emotional point in the film to have them show up. But other than those, there were like no other references to other Power Ranger seasons at all. Again, we had Bully, we had Principal. We couldn't give them the names of those original characters. There are no references to any other cities in Power Rangers. And I remember when the police officer goes into the jewelry store to stop Rita, I'm looking at his name tag to see if it's the name of anybody we particularly know. Maybe this could be Lieutenant Stone or something like that, but no, it wasn't even that. We didn't get any other references. If I'm missing them, please let me know. But I looked, I really did, guys. And again, only those three references I could find the previous seasons are in there. I am not at all upset about the Krispy Kreme thing. It's kind of funny, and I love Krispy Kreme. And guys, here's the thing. Let's assume Krispy Kreme didn't do the promotion at all, and nobody put up the money for the promotion at all. They still would have had to have gone to a building somewhere in downtown that was going to be destroyed. It could have been the grocery store or the donut shop, but it just happened to be a Krispy Kreme. I don't know why people are freaking out over this. I really don't, guys. It's not that big of a deal. Is it corporate advertisement? Yes. But you know what? It's not as intrusive as having giant logos of your manufacturer on your football uniforms or on every damn thing that you own, or Under Armour pasting 12 logos on a single hat that you buy from them. I don't think it's intrusive because, again, if you look in the real world, the cops are going to, if there's an emergency here, cops are not going to say, we got to be at 12th and Vine at the donut shop. No, they're going to say, we're going to be at 12th and Vine at the Krispy Kreme because we're going to go ahead and get these bad guys. Because it's real life. That's just how it is. A murder took place at the burger shop. Nobody says that. Murder took place at the Burger King. That's what people say. That's just how it is, guys. So if you're still hung up about the Krispy Kreme thing, just get over it because that's just how life is. And you know what? Again, compared to all the other options, I mean, it's better than Dunkin' Donuts, right? And apologize for you guys who like Dunkin' Donuts, but come on, Krispy Kreme's better. Um, let's talk about the Rangers themselves. Let's start with Jason, the most obvious thing. Again, I'm glad it wasn't a DUI. I get the prank. He obviously has some issues with his father, but they're not explored in the film. We don't even get him reacting or relating to any of his other family members. He has a little sister. He has a mother. But again, we just don't kind of get where his animosity is. I understand what his father is saying. He's obviously proud of his son for his football accomplishments. He's upset at his son that he didn't, that he screwed up, that he's not going to go to college and all that kind of stuff. But it seems that the animosity between them is deep seated, that it's been going on for a little bit longer, and I'm not exactly sure what it was supposed to go ahead and be because it's like we'll never see eye to eye. Well, I want more examples of that. Obviously, his father doesn't understand teenage prank, and I guess if I was in his father's position, I would be in a similar role. But it seems like it's more to it than that. And that scene at the end where he saves his father, it's not really earned, I think, because his father is caring about him. He is looking for him during the destruction of Angel Grove, but that was kind of like natural. It wasn't like a complete character turn, His father is kind of an asshole in the film, especially to the cop when they find Rita's body, but he seems like an alright guy. It just seems that his son made a mistake he was upset about, but there's got to be something else going on with them that I wish we knew about. Um, some people said they think Jason is a prick in this movie, and he kind of is, but I would argue that because he stands up for Billy without knowing Billy or really knowing that what Billy could do for him with the monitor, the tracker, and all that, I say that makes him somewhat noble in that regard, is that he stands up to a bully, to save his friend, and I hate to use this term, but it's just kind of funny, just bitch slaps the bully. And I think that's an altruistic move. I don't think that's something he wasn't motivated. He didn't want to hang out with Billy. He just did what he thought was right, and I appreciate that. And that's not something that I think was an epiphany of anything because of his accident. That just seems to be something that Jason already was. That was his character to begin with, and I like that, and I appreciate that. Beyond that, Zordon does give him the burden of responsibility. I don't exactly know why. Is he the Red Ranger? Yes, but as we've seen, the Red Ranger is not always the leader of the team. Is it because you are Red Ranger, you're destined to be him? And I know that's something I think Zordon said. I can't remember the exact wording, but he did say it was, I think it was his destiny to be the Red Ranger. And if they're going to play up destiny, I wish they would have worked that in a little bit more. It just seems to me that it was kind of, just again thrown in there. Again, maybe something on the cutting room floor. But I want to know what qualifies Jason to be the leader. Maybe because he is altruistic. And the other Rangers seem like they've had entire troubled lives. Jason doesn't seem like he's had a troubled life, that he's had one of privilege, and that he loses all that. And he doesn't do anything to try and gain it back. I guess the rest of the movie, it seems that after his accident, he's just going through the motions. He's not really there in a way. Is that he knows he has to go back home. He can't be out after 7. He's trying to do the right thing. He goes to detention. He stands up for people. He does the right thing. Um, but again, I just want to know where he falls into command leadership. Basically, I want to see where that comes from. Let's talk about Billy. So Billy, I think, was great in this movie. Everybody's saying he's got the best performance of the Rangers. That's possibly true. I can't say that with exact certainty. I'd have to watch the film again. Is he a little bit neurotic in the movie? I don't think he goes overboard. He doesn't go complete Rain Man on us or something, but he does talk a mile a minute. I like the fact that he doesn't say curse words on because he says yippee ki mother, mother, mother. Okay, mother's enough. That was kind of funny. I liked that. I thought that was great in a ranger who wants to hold back from cursing. I think that works well. Again, I love the fact that he likes country music. His only resemblance to Billy is that he is the smart one. That he again came up with the bomb and does that demolition stuff. I think that works pretty well in the film. And for him to die, I think made a good choice because he is the one that everybody does seem to care about on some level or another. But I thought he was good. I really don't have much to say about him. I don't know anything about autism or anything, and I don't exactly know what on the spectrum means exactly. Again, maybe you guys can clarify that for me. But he was a believable role. I mean, he's not Forrest Gump or Rain Man, but you know, I think he did well with the role that he was given. I have no real complaints about Billy. Um, okay, let's talk about Zach. Again, I love his backstory with his mother. I thought the scenes with his mother were pretty nice because he is this troubled teen, but it's only because he's afraid of being alone after his mother dies. And I like how he says like because he says if she goes, then change it to when she goes. How he knows that is inevitability that will happen, and that he was just kind of deluding himself that it won't or it might not, but he realizes that it will, and that's what scares him. That's his motivator. The only problem I have with that, however, is that why does he spend so much time alone if that's his fear is of being alone and losing his mother? I mean, I get the motivation that he has for wanting to be rich and famous in the movie because that could help his mother. If he has money, the power coins are actually worth something. He can help his mother. They can move out of the white trash trailer park that they're in, and they can have a better life and everything. But if his fear is being alone, why is he always leaving his mother? Why is he not going to school? Why is he hanging out by himself and essentially stalking the Trini character? Um, they seem to be at odds with each other. There's something else there that I'm missing, probably. But yeah, people who have a fear of being alone, losing someone close to them, usually don't go away from those people for long periods of time or isolate themselves in the way Zach does. Because they even talk about him camping out overnight, which I also imagine is not good for his mother, who probably spends a lot of time sleeping. But still, it's kind of like, she even asked, is he going to school? And That to me is problematic, as well as she doesn't know where her son is. But I guess that could be a little bit forgiven, given that she is bedridden. And I do like Zach. I think he was going to be my favorite character going in. And he I think he is. I like his backstory. I like the how the actor can get emotional and all that, and really emote there. But I think he was pretty good. I liked him. Kimberly. Not much to say about her. The romantic subplot is played down pretty much. I do like the romantic notion, and not in the kissy kissy love sense, but I do like the romantic notion of her and Jason actually talk about right away that if it wasn't for them becoming Power Rangers, the two of them would have run away together, and who knows what would have happened after that. That in itself would be kind of an interesting movie. I'm not really into romantic films like that, but there was something to it that I think would be interesting. Um, and here's something else that has come out since the movie, and I don't really want to talk about this, but I do think I should address it on some level, is that some people believe that Kimberly comes off as a bully in this movie because what her guilt is, what she feels bad about, is that basically one of her friends sent a naked picture of herself to Kimberly, or at least that's what's implied. They don't show the picture, but I'm guessing that's what it is. And then Kimberly showed it to a boy, and then drama ensues. She fights him, breaks his tooth, and then basically, when she has to explain to the principal and the father of the girl what happened, she realizes the error of her ways and how horrible she had become. And of course, tries to deflect it off of herself. And then she has this whole thing like, I am a monster kind of thing. Which brings up, I think, the most interesting line in the movies where Jason says, just because you did an awful thing doesn't make you an awful person. Now, people are interpreting Kimberly's actions as being a straight up bully, not in the traditional Balkan Skull or the bully we see early in the movie, but of the, modern day cyber bullying kind of thing. Um, I don't know if I really buy that. I don't really see that because she is regretful. She's remorseful why she did in the first place. I'm not exactly sure why her friend sent a naked picture of herself to another girl is also curious because I'd like a little bit more information on that and no, not on the titillating aspects of it, but on the fact of why would her friend send a naked picture anyway. I mean, guys, I must have lived under a rock, but as far as I know, in high school, girls didn't send naked pictures of themselves to each other. Then again, the cameras we had back then were pretty primitive. In any case, I want a little bit more backstory on that instead of Kimberly just telling her side. I'd like to know a little bit more about what was going on. And I am, girls, I still don't understand them. I'm in my 30s and still a complete mystery, but again, cutting the hair thing, I don't get that. Why she felt the need to cut her hair after her friends abandoned her, and why her friends thought this was such the greatest betrayal of all time. Basically, I mean, I guess if my friends showed a naked picture of me to another girl, I wouldn't be happy about it. But they really want to cut Kimberly out of their life totally, and I just don't. I want more. I want to know more. That's the whole point. That's why I said this movie needs to be longer. I want more. I don't think what is there is enough for these characters. I think there certainly needs to be more. And in that case, let's talk about Trini because Trini is somebody who absolutely needed more screen time. The funny thing is, based on the promotions that we were getting, not only on the television commercials and the trailers, but even the digital promotion that we were getting from Saban and Lionsgate and so forth, it certainly seemed like Trini was getting the biggest attention. She is the most well known of the five in that she's a singer and she's popular, I guess. Again, I'd never heard of her until she was up for the movie, and then all I knew is she did the opening theme of the what was it, or the national anthem, excuse me, at the game at one of the NFL games in Mexico. That's about all I know of this character, or this actress, excuse me. So they really played up she was going to be important in the film. It didn't really turn out that way. Again, we get very little with her family. We get very little of her conflicts. She is kind of a mystery through the first act, or for even first half of the film. And I really want to know more about her situation. I really want to know about her sexuality and how that plays into her character, and just how she feels about the whole thing. Again, we get a little bit of it, but I just don't think we get enough for all the hype she was given. And again, was it possible that the whole her being gay thing was blown out of proportion by the media? Possibly, but the thing is, it was a baby step on its way to something probably bigger down the line. Not necessarily for Power Rangers, but when we start getting into the MCU, DC Extended Universe, and so forth, and other superhero films, again, Power Rangers is the first to have a gay character and an autistic character, and I think for them to take that step is going to help down the line for other superhero movies and franchises to make that more acceptable. That's what I'm thinking. And again, maybe it was asking for too much to do. Because again, my theory was that Rita was her lover. That her friend was possessed or her girlfriend was possessed or something. That was totally inaccurate. That didn't happen at all. So this is what happens when I make theories and so forth. But I just really thought that based on the media reports that it would be more of a bigger deal in this movie towards Trini's character, and it is part of her character, but there just isn't much there. Again, people have described the Rangers as unlikable in this movie. I don't find them unlikable. I mean, I found Ziggy more unlikable than I did the characters in this movie. I found Will more unlikable than the characters in this movie. I found Nick more unlikable. I found Justin. Well, that's not fair. I mean, sometimes I find Justin more unlikable, but in any case, I thought the characters were likable. It's just again when you put the names of the original teens on them, it makes it more uncomfortable than it probably should be. If you had named them, Bill, Tom, Hank, Sarah, and Michelle, you would have had a different movie because it could have stood on its own and probably without us making all these comparisons that we are. Bryan Cranston is great as Zordon. I wish they gave him more to do. I'm I'm just wondering why this Zordon is so mean, I guess is the best word to go ahead and say it. I get that he's remorseful, that he failed the Rangers back in his time, that they're all dead because of him. I mean, they're all dead because of Rita, but Zordon takes upon himself to bear the brunt of that. And he feels that he is the one that can stop Rita. It's his job. He failed. He needs to make up for his sins. That's what I get from the character. Um, but he is so mean to the other Rangers because it's more like it is it is a ticking clock. It's 11 days until Rita can restore or whatever. We have that ticking clock down. The Rangers have to prepare. None of them are martial arts in this continuity, so they have to learn to be that, learn how to fight. I get that, but he is yelling at them more. He is being mean to them more than he has to be. Zordon always was kind of a matter of fact character, and what was really great about the first film is that he does have this kind of love and compassion for the Rangers. I think he has more of that towards the end once they're actually able to morph, and he chooses not to come through the morphing grid in order to, save Billy's life. But I really wish he was a little bit more compassionate. But that's something they probably work on going forward. Bill Hader as Alpha was great. I still hate the design. I wish they'd gone with something a little less ugly. But I think it worked pretty well. I also didn't like how he blinks and it makes a sound. It really kind of ruins one scene in the film a little bit with that noise. But other than that, he was pretty good. I liked him. He was very helpful. People always found the original Alpha annoying. I don't see that. I've never found Alpha to be annoying whatsoever. Alpha 6 maybe back in Turbo, but Alpha 5 never. I've never seen that. And apparently, this is another thing that really kind of bothers me is like apparently Alpha actually means something. It's an acronym for something. Why couldn't they just go with the fully functional automaton line from Day of the Dumpster? That would have been just so much easier. I don't know. Again, direct callback, and that's what I would have written, but, what do I know? I'm just a fan of the series. Okay, so let's talk about Rita. Crazy Hobo Rita. Of all the performances, I think hers is the closest to the original television counterpart. Um, okay, so I get she's after the Zeo crystal. I get that she thinks she can rule the universe with the power. But again, like I said with Extensing, I want to know more of her motivation. She wants power, but why exactly? What was it that turned her from the other Ranger team to go rogue and kill the others? I really want to know what it is. I want to know what happened. That's a backstory I want us to explore further in the films. I think for the setup film, which is what this is, I think it was kind of fine, but I really wanted to know more about why she did what she did, and was she always this kind of crazy, kooky, mysterious, and spooky kind of person? I do like she straight up murders people in this movie. I think that's well, it's not pretty cool, but she is a more serious threat because I think the body count is like 22 or something like that. And what really got me is so the scene in the jewelry store. I guess she kills the cop, and that's kind of like granted, a cop's going to be killed, line of duty, whatever. But what got me, she blew up the jewelry store, and last I checked, the happy young couple that got engaged and the innocent girl working at the desk, it seems to me they were killed too. And killing cops and hobos is a lot different than killing those people, so it's very uncomfortable when she does that. And I think that works for what they're trying to do. Um, she is playing it more crazy than evil, and again, I have kind of a problem with that. The thing about Rita, I think, in the original series is that she relished being evil, that she enjoyed it. Here, I think she's just manic for the sake of being manic. But again, some sort of backstory and reason to turn would have been great here. I don't know what you could have done off the top of my head. It's kind of late for me to think about that exactly, but certainly I'd like to have seen more of that. And again, I wanted villains that she could talk to, that she could interact with. Because if she was going to resurrect Goldar, have Goldar talk and say, "Mistress, I wish, I'm glad I'm back and stuff. What has happened and all that." That's the kind of stuff that I certainly would have liked to have seen more of. I'm also curious about her resurrection in this film. So, as we stated before, in the original continuity, 10,000 years ago, she's trapped in a dumpster and on the planet Nemesis or the planetoid, wherever you want to call it, and is released by two astronauts. Here, she's defeated by Zordon, and it went by so fast. I'm still a little unclear in exactly what happened, but she's knocked into the ocean, loses her armor, loses her staff, but still has her power coin. And the power coins in this movie act both like the way the Dino Gems did, and the Inner Gems do, and that they give you these extraordinary powers, and they also make you immortal. Because when they find Rita's body, they're fishing on the coast side, and they find her almost kind of like skeletal, mummified remains and all that. Because that's why when she knocked to the ocean, she's there forever and stuff. And we know it was 65 million years ago based on Alpha's dialogue and, of course, the prologue scene. So, what exactly was going on these 65 million years? I get the power coins basically made her immortal so she can't die while she's in the ocean, and I'm going to assume that she isn't dead at the end where she's like frozen and floating in space. But why wasn't she contained in some sort of dumpster? Again, that would be like an obvious callback that you would make is, oh, she was contained in a dumpster and it's now accidentally been unearthed. Because, again, I'm no geologist or scientist, but shouldn't she be buried under, miles of sedimentary rock and fossils and dirt and all that stuff? You can't tell me that she had been under the ocean this entire time, just kind of floating around for 65 million years, and this is the first time somebody's found her. And we know, according to the movie, it is Angel Grove is California coast. That is where they are. Looks like Northern California, if I recall correctly. So why was she just kind of floating around? That's kind of a big plot hole that I think could have been easily resolved by, again, just having her being trapped in something for all this time. Because, again, if the command center is so far underground and the rocks formed around it, then Rita should have been found by an archaeological expedition as opposed to a bunch of fishermen just randomly fishing. And again, what if the Rangers never gone there? Rita would have been resurrected without any of the power coins. I also want to bring up the fact about the morphing grid and the Zeo crystal because I don't think this movie understands either of what those things are. The morphing grid, again, has something to do with life, but it's not really clear. I'd have to see the movie again, listen to the dialogue. And the Zeo crystal, as it's described, is that each planet in the universe has a shard of it. And that's something I'm not understanding here because the Zeo crystal, again, in the continuity, is just a magical crystal made that was cut up into five subcrystals. This movie indicates that the Zeo crystal is something you find on every planet, and you basically gather pieces of it. And then when you take it from the planet, it destroys the planet. Well, again, I'm no scientist, but aren't there like an infinite, I mean, not infinite number, at least trillions upon trillions or googolplex upon googolplex of planets in the universe? Even if Rita was trying to get the Zeo crystal to form it with the other shards from other planets, that she'd never be able to complete that task. And again, it sounds like each one has its own Zeo crystal, each planet, whether it's Eltar, Aquitar, or whatever. Um, Again, I want some clarification on that. And I am surprised the Zeo crystal is that far is not very far underground. Again, given where the power chamber or the command center is in this particular version. I'm also curious about the Zord battle at the end because, first of all, the Zord battle was fine, looked great. I think the Pterodactyl looks better in the film than I think the other Zords do. It's really hard to see the Triceratops and Mastodon anything unless they're up close because of all the shadows and their relative size. They're just really hard to go ahead and see. But when they defend the Zeo crystal with their Zords and then they're pushed into the pit with the crystal, does the crystal cause them to form the Megazord? Because again, it's my understanding that the Zords already could form the Megazord, and if that's the case, Alpha and Zordon should have told them about that from the beginning. Uh, but then when they're shoved in, then the Megazord forms, and I think the biggest problem is we don't see the Megazord form, because what's one of the best things about a Power Ranger episode when Megazord's introduced? To see how it's combined, and we didn't see that at all in this film. It's just they're thrown in there and they just come together. That's where the apparent laziness of this film comes in, where it is like Michael Bay Transformers, which I love the jab at that, where they basically crush a Bumblebee-like car and toss in the crowd and say, "Sorry, Bumblebee." That's them taking their jab at the Transformers, and I think the indication there was we are not like the Transformers, so just stop comparing us to that. If that, of course, was the case, then why didn't we see a very clear transformation to the Megazord? Because I bought the toy, I really did, the whole 5-piece 5-in-1 set. And I haven't had a chance to actually open it and put them together or anything. So if I don't put the toys together and I just look at the Megazord, I have no idea where all these pieces are. I honestly don't know how they form the Megazord in this movie. Just by looking at it, I still can't tell how you transform all the pieces. Um, so it's kind of odd that they would hide that from the audience to say, hey, we formed a Megazord, but you don't get to see how it happens. And it's not really that big of a reveal of it coming out of the pit as a fully formed Megazord because the trailer pretty much ruined most of the battle anyway. Anything that may have been interesting from it was spoiled in the trailer itself. So I've talked for over an hour now about this movie, so I don't know what else to go ahead and say about it, guys. I think I've said a lot. Let's see, we talked about the music, we talked about the characters, we talked about the scenes in the movie. I think ultimately this is what we're going to be left with is that I think this movie is the appetizer. I think from this point forward, the movies are just going to get better because now we know what works. Now we know what doesn't work. Hopefully, Saban, Lionsgate, whoever are listening to this podcast, among many other commenters, and listening to their thoughts on the movie. And I hope they actually listen to what I say and take into consideration. And guys, I get the feeling somebody from Saban Brands is listening to me. I'm sure somebody is. Um, oh, real quick about the mid credit scene. That's the laziest mid credit scene I have ever seen. We have a new student, Tommy Oliver. Tommy Oliver, where's Tommy Oliver? Yeah, they could have done a little bit better than that. Some people say that it was a much more significant scene, and even I report that to you guys, and that's completely wrong. It's not really significant. We don't even get to see what Tommy looks like, so um, stay for it if you want. I just didn't think it was that big of a deal that the hype would have suggested that it was. All in all, again, this is the appetizer. The next movies in the next couple of years are coming. We're gonna see. I am willing to bet the next movie is going to be a Green with Evil type of movie, which I kind of find odd. I honestly, I think the next movie should certainly be the status quo being built, because at the end of this movie, the Rangers are no longer Rangers. Rhea is defeated. The threat is over. They go back to their quote unquote normal lives. But they need another threat in between before we get a Green Ranger, certainly. Because imagine if we did Day of the Dumpster and then Green with Evil was the very next episode. That's kind of how it feels that they'd be going. But again, we'll see. As long as they learn from their mistakes, that was the problem. Again, with the Transformers movies, they didn't learn from their past mistakes, and they just made every movie pretty much worse and worse from where they left off. But I have high hopes for the Power Rangers franchise in the future, that they will do a better job. And again, I liked it. So you guys tell me what you think. I've talked long enough. If I have something else I want to talk about, I'll make another video about it. But I think I've certainly talked long enough. What do you guys think? What were your thoughts on the movie? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you agree, disagree with anything that I've said? Put in the comments below. Let me know. But it's very late, so I'm out of here, guys. Have yourselves a good evening. And the tavern is now closed.